Thank you for clicking on this video. I hope you enjoy. And if you do, then don't forget to like and subscribe. Ring that notification bell so you stay up to date on further content. Greetings. Welcome to Shadow Star. I am the Renegade Rashad and this is a Starship visual review. So allow me to welcome you, captains, artisans, engineers, those of temporal, intelligence and command roles. I'm glad you're all here to join me today. I trust that you are in the correct place. We won't be talking about the ship's stats today, nor will we seeing this ship in battle. This is simply a breakdown of how the ship looks and ways it can be customized. Now, this ship was covered by a mass grouping where all 4 of the latest iterations to come out of the temporal works of, well, Klingon, Federation, Romulan and Dominion engineering. It's a great cross and an alliance that has benefited us all. But you of the Federation probably have more interest in one specific ship. And, well, I guess we will be hosting the Romulan and the Dominion as well, but that aside, please allow me to introduce to you the Federation's refit model of a incredible ship known as the Hoover class. This is the Temporal warship known as the EDISON class. Wow, this ship looks good from below. Well, this is not what I was expecting. Let me be blunt. Star Trek Discovery is an interesting era and have some very interesting looking ships. But one of the most hideous ships, in my personal opinion, is the Hoover class. Not because it's a bad idea, but because I just don't get why the secondary part of the hull is so far below the saucer. I'm happy to say the EDISON appears to have rectified this issue. She is an impressive warship, and yes, Starfleet has come into its own and realized that warships are necessary. This ship is a temporal warship, one of the first iterations of temporal warship to be developed. Can you really say that about temporal ships? Is there ever a first one? Well, this ship in specific is the next in the lineage to the Hoover class, and so it has quite the name to stand up to, considering the Hoover class was there at the Battle of the Binary Stars. And for that very reason, it earned its place in, well, legends. However, this ship has a lot of detailing to go over. The worst thing about some Federation ships, our detailing is insane at times. Well, let's begin. The first thing to really denote, personally, with this ship is, of course, we are using the current iteration of hull plating. Of course, other hull platings are available. In fact, this ship has a vast variety of hull plating types. You have types 1 through 8 and 8B. These are your more present, so sort of old school. The type 1 to 3 are the sort of hull platings you'd have seen during the development eras of the Galaxy class and similar ships. Could even say the Sovereign in some ways. Type 4 is a new type of variant dark hull using the same hull plate type, but it was stained to be darker and to assist with low power camouflaging. Type 5 is an impressive, more chromatic hull plating, great for reflecting energy types, I would imagine. I believe it to be an ablative type, but, well, we've never been overly sure, have we? Type 6 moves into our present iteration. This is a more basic form and was the prototype hull plating before it was perfected. After perfection, the Type 7 was developed, which has increased hull protection and, of course, the new energy refracting plates around critical areas. Obviously, I'm bullshitting. None of this has anything to do with actual stats, but I like to imagine that these hull plates have some great touches to them. Type 8, though, goes back to a classic look. Nice and refined, but gives you that classic touch of the motion picture era. And 8B is the darker plate type seen in the same period. The upgrade hull plate armor is an incredibly dark variant of your, I want to say, veteran combined with Type 5. Type 0 brings you back to the original series. Veteran is available to you veteran players and is a very nice touch to the ship's aesthetic. I will say, in this ship in particular, it has very pleasing qualities, and it's actually one of the only ships I would actually fly with veteran hull. The NX and the NX refit are impressive hull types. It's interesting to think that the NX is actually a very dark hull. Though in this lighting you don't see it correctly. It is actually more of a bronzy beige versus a whitish grey of the Columbia class. Finally, you have all your Discovery era hull types available to the ship, which gives you some interesting looks and feels to the ship should you wish for them. The ship's modular parts are actually cross-compatible with its previous pre-retrofit form, the Hoover class, allowing you to make some unusual adaptations. If you're actually a fan of the larger hull of the Hoover class, you're more than welcome to imply it to the ship, of course. It's an interesting touch you can make to the ship, and I will say it really does show the aesthetic beauty of that upper hull. The big thing I want to point out here, though, is paying attention to that lower bit. You'll notice that it is the Baran class's lowest, well, mostly the Baran class on the lower section, which is interesting to see, because I'm pretty sure the whole top section is a remodel. But there's nothing wrong with a bit of cross-compatibility here. Perhaps eventually you'll have the ability to cross-compat all ship parts. God, can you imagine building your own ship? That would be interesting. But to continue further on. The ship has impressive interiors. You are capable of using the Aquarius Bridge on this ship. Now, for those who haven't seen the Aquarius Bridge, it is an extremely refined variant of the Origin Bridge. And I would say much better looking than the Odyssey. Sorry to say there, Odyssey class. It is interesting to see that Sharan is always on his Aquarius' bridge. He must prefer his escort. Though commanding a flagship from the escort ship is actually quite an impressive idea. There is more to this ship than simply how you customize it. It's actually safe to say this ship is a very unusual concept design for a Federation vessel. I mostly approve of where they place the name and registration plate on the ship, right under where the bridge is. But the thing I like most about the bridge is 1, no big ass window in the front, and 2, the multi-layer bridge. Now, I'm assuming what's actually going on there is you have ship command and temporal command. I imagine temporal command being on top purely because of the sensor platform at the top there as well. You'd imagine that that is a sensory grid for the temporal drive, but there's plenty you can argue against that. So it may just be an ordinary sensor point. Either way, the whole bridge modular section I enjoy. And I really enjoy the fact that you have, of course, deck 1 and down to deck 2. You see how it ribs around to the back, but then you've got these little pathways, 6 pathways in total, 3 on either side, that span off of that central spinal network of whatever you want to call this back part of the ship, that goes into the side points. Now, I imagine these to be part of the turbo lift mechanism, so I don't imagine that's how you could walk down them. I suspect that those are turbo lifts going away from the bridge that shoot out around the ship, and that's just a quick way to get into the main sections. Towards the back, you have these 8 intriguing ventral points. Not entirely sure what they are, but it's possible that this ship is generating so much energy that it requires additional ventilation as such. But then it also brings up these beautiful grills. Now, the thing I really like about the grills is that, yes, you could say they don't serve much point, but hear me out. If this ship is generating a huge amount of heat, you gotta remember the vacuum of space is insanely cold. If those were actually drawing in the chill of space, you could call them hypercooling units. And in essence, that would be great, because this ship has got a lot going on about it that I'm not entirely sure you're supposed to notice, especially with the EDISON class. One of the other things I really like is the positioning of the emergency lifeboats. The escape pods are all really well set out. There doesn't seem like there's too many. There's also definitely not too few. And they're positioned in such a way that you can tell where the bridge crew goes to, where engineering goes to, and where the rest of the people around the ship goes to. Because this is a fairly large ship. I can still imagine some families being on board. I don't want to look underneath it. I've got too much to say about this ship. Move towards the back, and you have this, what I'm going to jokingly call a sensory node. But we've got to pay attention to exactly where it is. So that's on the upper hull, directly above the hangar bay, and directly behind the bridge. I'm looking at this ship, and you know engineering is down here in the secondary hull. I doubt there's an engineering. There might be mini engineering in this upper bit, but I will talk about that shortly. See, this ship's saucer definitely has no sign of nacelles or warp capability. However, there's things about this ship that makes me believe that that is a warp sustainer. If you don't know what a warp sustainer is, you have ships that hold them. For example, there is a warp sustainer on the Galaxy class's saucer section, so that should it have to be forced into an emergency separation during warp, the saucer can sustain warp speed for a short period of time. The NX class actually had a warp field balancer and sustainer, which is what that. In between the pylons heading down from the nacelles in the NX class, you had that section that looks a bit like engineering. It actually kind of is part of engineering. That crystal you see on top of it, though, is a warp sustainer, which is required for the NX because once the NX was at speed, it actually had to disable its warp drive the main systems of the warp drive because it would overload. It was very rough and primitive at this time. A warp sustainer was used to maintain warp speed once the required speed was reached, allowing the warp drive to cool down and just gently nudge up the speed every once in a while. So perhaps that on the back of this ship is a warp sustainer, and considering its size, perhaps it is a temporal sustainer. Seems temporal ships have temporal shielding and are able of doing temporal jumps. Now, if you were mid-temporal jump and forced into a separation, you would need some way to sustain there as well, would you not? So where a normal warp sustainer would be only the central section of that lovely bit that's showing up here, I believe the whole thing itself is known, it would be a temporal sustainer and be designed to not only protect yourself, but the reason it's near the shuttle bay is to be able to protect shuttles as well. Effectively creating a bit of a bubble. I also feel that this ship has a separation ability for a very distinct reason. And yes, it's got a huge connection point. Perhaps it's needed. But if you look underneath, just there at the back of the ship, you can see there's more sensory nodes underneath. Or targeting nodes. But the thing that really stands out to me when you look underneath, on the pylons you can see it's impulse array. You know that's the impulse array because, well, look where the yellow glow is coming from. It tells you it's the impulse array. But what is currently exactly the same in appearance, but currently inactive? Dead center. Right underneath the shuttle bay. I am willing to bet that that is a auxiliary impulse engine. The way that, well, impulse thrust point. The way that one works is the moment you've separated, it engages impulse and that pushes the ship along, allowing the ship to maneuver at relatively low power. It's not as big as those other ones, but it's large enough. It will easily maneuver this section of the ship. So, to me, this is a ship more than capable of, one, separation, and two, separate and coordinated action. Perhaps taking temporal offensive in 2 different periods of time. Ship goes back in time to a specific point, separates, and then the secondary hull makes a second jump to a new point in time, rendezvousing at a point when they can, and basically allowing themselves to better control any form of temporal incident. It would be quite intelligent for the ship to be capable of doing that, so I could see it being possible. Still really staying at the upper section though. Look at that. That hangar bay is one that I really like. For 2 reasons. 1, the landing strip. 2, it's dug in, it's defended, it's a little bit protected. 3, it's 2 doors. So maybe one opens, or maybe both opens. But it's relatively large, so you can imagine it holding some larger runabout craft. I would possibly say a next iteration Yellowstone runabout, and then possibly a couple of whatever the latest iteration of shuttlecraft is. I really doubt it'll be using like Type 10s and Type 8s. A ship of this capability, I'd expect a couple of Aeon time ships, if Aeon time ships were delivered to this ship, and possibly temporal coordinated Type 11s, Type 15, whatever you want to call it. You can definitely see it being manned with more than just standard shuttlecraft though. Now, let's go down and we get onto the secondary hull. This is where I'm both not certain, but absolutely adoring of this ship's computive design. So, the secondary hull aft part looks like it's grilled up and vented. Now, it's possible under a chronoton drive failure you need to vent all that power. To me, that looks like a big-ass junction which just goes, open an emergency vent. Like the warp nacelles sometimes vent the plasma when they're overloading. Otherwise, I'm not entirely sure why the grilling at the back there. I admit it's very nice. It may just be a basic way of temperature release. But suffice to say, that was the first thing that caught my eye when I looked at the back of the ship. Because, admittedly, this was the angle I first looked at the back of the ship with. And that just straight into my eye. The second thing, however, was this sensory node below on the secondary hull. Now, I'm willing to bet that is the temporal drive, serving in more than one way. It's plausible that what we're actually seeing at the back here is the ejection system. So they move open and you've got your temporal drive eject and maybe warp drive eject. Seeing as I do imagine these ships to have a backup warp drive. Even if you've got temporal drive, you need backup warp drive. That's why they still have warp nacelles. Come on. The other thing, though, I want to question on that is, why is it so big? I mean, look at the size of this ship, and it's a massive point. Now, it could just be a case of I'm overthinking this, but is it a case of that is actually an emitter array that we can physically see there? The blue section isn't just part of an ejection port or anything, but it's a physical temporal emitter array to create the temporal bubble that allows the ship to go, I'm now going from the 25th century to the 4th century, because I'm a weirdo and I really want to go back that far. Yeah, I don't think I would. But yeah, I'm not really sure what I wanted to say beyond that. I don't know. I do like it there. I just don't like the way it's designed. I kind of wish the deep blue part was missing. If that part was missing and it was just a blue ring, I think I'd like it more. But maybe I'm just mean. I'm going to be a little bit more mean now. It's got fins on the below, it's got fins on the top. What is it with these Discovery update ships having fins on them? I think Lieutenant Paris is working for a cryptic team recently. Everything's getting fins. Speaking of fins, however, gotta keep looking at the back. There's a lovely bit of finnage and grilling there on the actual impulse drives, or the primary impulse drive, as I'll call it. And I've got to say, I do applaud it. Splitting it up and making it 6 impulse engines just makes the ship feel like it has more redundancies. I mean, it's a lot harder to take out 3 small impulse engines than it is to take out 1 big. So, it's good to see that there. They're nicely designed as well, and they really do fit in with design. I am a little surprised the pylons are lifting up. And I'm really glad they are. It'd have been too easy to go flat or down, which would have ruined the ship's aesthetic design. The rays is what makes it so beautiful in my books. Now, going to the side profile a little bit here, we're going to look at the saucer from the side view. One of the things I do like is the way the saucer isn't exactly smooth. You've got your runs down the spine that makes it feel like tough, rugged, battle ready. It's a warship. The bridge is, well, although outstanding, also relatively protected. Engineering's built in and dug in, and there's this lovely way it raises up and then builds into this sort of hump at the back, gives it a very sharp spear-like feel to the ship, and that is greatly complemented by its nacelle design and its deflector dish, which now gets on to the next point. I mean, hey, can't really ignore that deflector, can we? So it is, take away that blue shielding over it, whatever that is, and you literally have the same deflector that you find on plenty of these other new ships. I'm not going to complain, because I really like this deflector design. Personally speaking, the one you see on the Baran is my personal favourite, but I can't like the Baran's one and then say I dislike this one. It may be positioned slightly differently. It's not its fault. It is really nice though. The bit that really makes this one work though is that secondary shield dome over it. Much like you have with the Basar collectors, you have that orange shield dome or shielding over the Basar collectors themselves to make sure the wrong things don't hit it. You've got it now over the deflector dish, and in this case it's blue. is essentially the exact same thing, serving the exact same purpose, defending a very important part of the ship, and its coloration doesn't break from, well, canon aesthetics. We have blue deflectors. Admittedly, you could have made it orange or gold because they are sovereign, but that might have annoyed some people. With that being said though, it's a nice thing and I'm not entirely sure what to make of it. The only thing I can suspect is it's a temporal deflector field. And by that, I mean that shielding over the deflector dish, what it's actually doing is it's protecting the entire ship in truth. So that you don't have situations like Quark ending up in the middle of a US military base. You don't end up with Archer all the way back in World War, I think it was, II. You don't end up with Janeway now trying to get a bloody Aeon time shuttle back to the correct present moment in time. It stops temporal incursions from accidentally happening. Probably by deflecting chronoton particles. Either way, it's a really good design. The thing I do really like though about this is the specific design cue I picked up on. Now, I'm gonna just shut up for a second, leave my cursor in a spot. You're gonna have a few seconds to see if you can guess what I picked up on. Did you get it? The crossfield class. That section there is actually very reminiscent of the crossfield class, albeit far thinner. And I actually really adore that. It is essentially, that lower half to the ship is essentially an updated variant of the crossfield class. In fact, say you could probably get away with saying that that is the same size as the crossfield class's secondary hull. In which case, let me know, it would work well, wouldn't it? That would also explain that huge bit at the back. It'd be a hangar bay. Much like up top. Perhaps that is what is down here. Perhaps that is a giant hangar bay. I don't know why you'd have such a big hangar bay, but it's a warship, so it might want to launch lots of fighters. It can't launch fighters, it doesn't have a hangar. But it's plausible. And yes, that is something I really do like about it. Now we get into where I start to be a bit uncertain, and it's the last thing I want to point out before we go on to the warp nacelles. On top, you can see these little circles. There's 5 at the front of the saucer. Underneath, there's 1 dead center. And as far as I'm aware, there isn't any more on the ship. So they're all at the front. I haven't got a foggiest clue what they could possibly be. They say form follows function, and surely it must have a use, but Lord help me if I guess what it is. Actually, before we go into the cells, I want to just point out one little thing that I do really like about the ship. The pinstriping. I know it's silly to point out pinstriping, it's on all ships. But in this ship in particular, it's done in such a absolutely gorgeous way along the nacelles, around the saucer, along the actual attack front, underneath, how it almost mirrors it. It just makes it really makes the look of the ship pop. Gives it such a lively feel to the ship. I love it. I would look at the deflector from above, but below gives you a bit of a better angle on it. So, first of all, registration plate. It's kind of interesting. I am very curious as to the warp grilling though. Around the outer edge, I absolutely adore that part, but I'm not entirely sure if I'm keen on the bit in the middle. However, it looks like there's a plate there that will slide back over it, sort of armor style, so it slides over and protects it. And there is a minor coloration difference. Is it possible that these are two different kind of warp coils? Perhaps the standard ones that you can see are the just standard energized, and the second ones are sort of like a boost proximity, increase the power of the plates, slide back, increase output to the warp field, and you get even more speed. Perhaps. But what really did pop for me on this nacelle in Pacific is the turbocharger, as I like to call them. This little bit at the front of the ship. It's all in black at the moment. It really does. To me, it gives. If you look at the nacelle, it's really flat, a little too flat. If they weren't there, it'd be like a literal blade. And yes, in the right situation, that would work. But I feel like having that little bump to the design just really completes the ship and makes it feel far more alive. In essence, to me, it feels like the back of the ship just feels like it. The nacelles and facades feel like there's some kind of fantasy sword slapped onto the pylons. But the way it's been designed is just giving it that, although aggressive, very organic feel at the same time. I would say something about the facades, but I would just now be quoting everything I've said about the Baran, the Magi, the Gargarin. They've all got similar facade designs. They're all practically the same thing, and I've actually got a little bored of it. I think the Magi was the only one that gave us something different. So I am a little bit upset that they didn't give us a new facade design, but hey, what can you do? The rest of the ship is absolutely gorgeous. I mean, seriously. Okay, we'll get on to the weapons. Now, this is where things get insane, okay? I've talked about well-armed ships before. This is a warship you'd expect to be well-armed. Now, if it's anywhere near the Giorgio class, ha! Oh, we're in for wartime. But let's just take the top view for a start. What can you see? Well, the saucer itself, on the top of the saucer, you have two aft phaser strips, relatively small, and two huge phaser strips, giving it a brilliant 360-degree line of sight from the upper section. And in fact, they're rather large and high output. It's quite believable to say this ship's got an immense amount of firepower. I'm pretty sure they will be able to burst fire. If you think the Galaxy class had developed the ability to rapid fire consecutive shots from its phaser strips, by this point they would have developed a way of perfecting it so that they could burst fire from multiple points. This will give the ship quite a heavy amount of firepower. Going underneath, and it's a little bit different, but not too different. In fact, the underside is where it gets scary. See, luckily there's no strips on the nacelles. Probably a good thing, because the secondary whole lower half has 3 phaser strips, and this itself is a good amount on the lower half of the hull. But then you have the 2 at the back and the 2 at the forward, mirroring the upper hull. So where the upper hull has a delightful 4 strips, the lower hull has 7. But it doesn't stop there. Oh no. Oh no. Do not think it ends there. You think those strips are all it's got? You got to be kidding me. This ship, when you get it in-game, is armed with only cannons. So the first thing I looked at was cannons, and okay. Now I admit, they don't look like cannons to me. In fact, the 2 central ones may be phase cannon outputs, but that's not the first thing that sort of screamed to me from them. However, these really long, large ones, they scream to me dual beam emitters, which would be the first time we've seen them on the ship. And that is where I went, perhaps it's not what I think it is. You see, first of all, this ship has an amazing power. This great little power of the ship, the quantum entanglement, emits multiple, like the Defiant, quantum shots that deal massive amount of radiation damage. Now, it's possible that that's what these little circles are. But then, I'm going to just ask another question. Where's the torpedo tubes? Then it kind of hit me. Are these new variants of torpedo launchers? You gotta bear in mind this is a warship. It's possible it's come out with a new variant of torpedo launcher. So what popped in my head is perhaps the two central ones are the torpedo tubes and the outer ones are beam emitters. Yeah, a bit weird that they have the same glow effect on them. But I don't think that's too far out of the possibility. Another possibility for torpedo tubes, well, I couldn't think of one. I looked and I looked and I looked. Honestly, don't think there is any other torpedo tube points on this ship, except for if we go to the after section, on those spins at the lower section I mentioned before. Now on there, you've got these two little bulb points. I imagine them to be either torpedo tubes or mine launchers. Well, I'm not sure which. Oh no! Are these a form of reverse impulse drive? They do look like the impulse array, don't they? That would be very unusual if they are. But it is. That aside, I do want to joke and say this ship is actually woefully underarmed in comparison to the Giorgio and the Gargarin and, well, and any of the other ships. This one seems to be one of the least armed. I think only the Magi, oh no, the Magi has huge torpedo launchers. I can't really say only the Magi is less. So yeah, it's a little bit, I'm a little bit disappointed in the amount of armaments on this ship. But, hey, no complaints really. Besides, how can I complain? There's one other thing we need to look at. We've talked about customization, but what about these aesthetic shields? Now, these are absolutely beautiful on the ship. I'm not even going to just deny it right now. Look at this. You can see the now Bashan collectors through the shield Bashan housing. I love the change on the RCS thrusters, and the hull plate just looks gorgeous on this ship. I've also noticed that this hull plating that you have with Discovery, apparently, is actually really close to the NX. Which is probably why I like Discovery so much. Awkward! So, from Discovery's hull plating, how about the Emperor's Vanity shield? Holy... oh, wow. Why does the Emperor's Vanity shield make everything look just so much more badass? It's a pity it didn't change the deflector shielding. If that changed that to yellow, I'd have been in love with it. That has actually also fixed the disc at the base. I kind of like that more. I'm now positive that's an impulse array. And I'm pretty confident those front ones are impulse arrays too. It is a very nice touch. Certainly can feel the aggression coming from the ship. Next up, Section 31, Vanity Shield. That's right, I've listened, and why does the Section 31 shield always look so damn good? God damn! It might just be the fact I like black holes, but... bite me. But no, with that being said, it is a really nice touch and look. I actually kind of like this more because it keeps the blue in such a beautiful way. it is a pretty touch to the ship. I can also see that as a Section 31 ship. Okay, time to get assimilated. Wow, okay, I like that more. Purely because it really shows off now. It breaks the housing around the deflector array and makes it really pop. Even the temporal node looks better. Whoo! The Borg do know how to make things look good, don't they? So we let the Borg have a bit more fun. Come on, let's do it. Why not? So what's that done? Let's planted that onto one of the impulse engines and had the weird bit of plate augmentation on the back of the nacelle. Doesn't really work. I do feel like they need to create a new skin they can add on because they keep just slapping it on anywhere. STO needs to come up with something new that they can touch on, because if you look at that, you could tell that that is really old school STO and hasn't been updated in a long time. Whereas the rest of it just really looks amazing, and it's like, oh dear. Please update your textures a little bit, STO. Okay, time to Aegis time, and we'll take off the assimilation parts, why not? So, the Aegis outfit is... Again, it's great on the deflector, really makes the deflector stand out. However, I don't really think it helps anything else. Huh. I was half expecting the dark blue bit to have changed its appearance, but it didn't. That's interesting. Okay. Bashan defense Covariant shields. Oh, okay, the lower part of the secondary hull looks terrible. Oh, yeah, okay. The rest of it, though, is kind of intriguing in look. Not really sure what I think of that, to be fair. Okay. Counter command. Or counter command Covariant shield array, should I say. Now that just looks aggressive. Deflector looks amazing in this one. Much better temporal node at the bottom. Love it. The oh no, they are the same. I thought for a second that the two nacelles looked a little different. It's a very nice touch on the ship, I would say. Probably would work better if it was on top of the upgrade hull, but it's a nice touch. Now to the Delta Alliance Unimatrix shielding. Probably one of my favourite shields, but at the same time one of my least favourites. I like it as a shield to use on my ships, but I don't like it as a shield to use visually. And in this situation, yeah, I'm probably going to stick to the visual. A dislike. Don't know about you guys, but I feel like it just doesn't really pop right. Now for something very nice and interesting. The Dyson Regenerative shielding. I do like my regenerative shields, if I'm honest. Hey, it's a nice touch. Works really well on the wow. Wow, from that angle there is no hub cover. That has to be a glitch. I doubt they intended to do that. I mean, I'm not complaining. You really do see the deflector well. And you see what the deflector would look like if it didn't have that shield housing on. Now that we can see that, I really wish they didn't put the housing on it. Just because that looks better. And it looks even more like the Discovery's secondary hull now. So, yeah. STO, give us the ability to take that house covering off. Thank you. Next up, Iconian Resistance Resilient Shielding. Ordinarily, I'd say the Iconian one's pretty bad. Wow, it looks good on the secondary piece. Give us source of separation. I'll really enjoy separating now. It is quite a good touch, actually. It works. Awkward to say, and I like it. don't like saying I like the Iconian one because I don't really tend to like it. Make a resilient shielding array. Well, this should just be a chroming effect on most of it. Golding of the RCS. Oh, golding of the plate next to the deflector dish. And it's affected whether or not you can shield the see the cover, housing cover. It's no right touch, I guess. Can't say it's one I'd use specifically myself, but it looks alright. A new one for me, the Romulan Advanced Prototype Shielding. Huh! Turned all the black pieces green. Essentially, turns your ship white and green. If it was grey, it probably would work better for me, but hey, it's a nice touch. I wasn't expecting that on the ship, though. Now, I was expecting more what you get from the Romulan prototype shielding, but hey. Then again, it's Romulan. I should have kind of seen that coming. My bad. Temple on Temporal. Let's see. This has to be good. Come on. Give it this. It's pretty. I kind of wish the pattern you could see at the front of the ship was on what was appearing to be black plating. If that sort of skinnage was on all the black plating, it would have looked far better right now. But it's not to say it doesn't look good. If you like the weird aesthetic random oil pattern that it has. Terran Task Force Covariant Shield. Damn, that looks good. Damn, that looks good. We got a whirlpool underneath. Wow. Ho, ho, ho. How's it going? That's the first thing I'll say to you. How's it going? Are you flying? Yeah, I didn't say the other term. I have my screenshot already. That's not bad. I do it because I do it. The dielectric oscillant resilient shielding. This is never a good idea, but well, no, it doesn't grow on me. It's ugly. Jemadar, much like the other Jemadar ship we shall see at some point. Oh, yeah. I do like that look. But then again, I'm a fan of purple, so of course I like that look. The whole ship looks really good in this, and actually gives me kind of a feeling of the bug ship. The Scarab Beetle Jemadar strike ship, and that's a nice feeling to have because I do like the Jemadar strike ship. Kind of makes me wish now that the nacelles were, instead of being out flat, were actually bent downwards. I know it's weird that I'm saying that because normally I'm not a fan of that kind of thing. Note, I don't like the resolutes nacelles, but I kind of wish you had that option now. They look pretty good. Finally, wow! See, Romulans, eat your heart out. The fucking Remans know how to make a shield. That is beautiful. It's really about the Bashan housings. The Bashans were blue now, or that same teal coloration. They'd look even better. But you can't win them all. And with that being said, I still really do like the aesthetic change. However, I'm not gonna lie, I think I prefer just the way it visually looks. It's a gorgeous ship, absolutely stunning. And I keep going back to this view because this is my favourite view of the ship. It really stands out as a warship and it's beautiful. But now in lies one final question, guys. I need to ask you guys, what do you think? Do you like this beautiful beast of battle? What do you think of her looks, her weapon layout, the sort of armaments she may have? What do you think she's armed with? Certainly I would expect that the phaser rays, and chronoton torpedoes of some kind. This is an impressive ship, and I do love her visuals. So comment section below, guys, tell me what you think of her. And also, tell me what you think of any other ships. There's nothing wrong with chatting about your favourite ships in the comment section. And I hope you'll check out the description so that you can possibly follow me on social media and really keep up to date with me on everything that I'm doing. While simultaneously, you'll also be able to find ways to support this channel should you wish to do so. Believe me, the support I get right now is more than appreciated, especially with the situation that I am in. And for that very reason, I'll thank you by supporting me. Thank you for the support that you have given me by watching to the very end of this video. It means a lot. Until next time, guys. Thank you for watching. Visually, this ship gets a 10 out of 10. Live long and prosper. Helm!